of silver. Wow. Quantities of bronze and iron. What? We don't have numbers? No, because they're too great to be weighed. And wood and stone. Then in Chronicles 28, David gave Solomon the plans of all that the Spirit had put in his mind for the courts of the temple of the Lord and all the surrounding rooms, for the treasuries of the temple of God and for the treasuries for the dedicated things. He had the whole plans. He had the architectural drawings, if you will, and all the materials to put it together. Besides that, David also organized the Levites, the priests, the choirs, the porters, the soldiers, and stewards to be ready to work in this new temple that Solomon would build. He's already instructing how the care and attention of that temple operation will occur, and the building hasn't even been built yet. The book of 1 Chronicles ends with chapter 29. And David offering up a beautiful public prayer of praise to God and the accession of his son Solomon to his throne following his death. 2 Chronicles continues this spiritual commentary on Israel's united kingdom. While 2 Chronicles really parallels 1st and 2nd Kings, it virtually ignores the northern kingdom almost entirely. Now we've got a divided kingdom, right? Okay. 2 Chronicles focuses on the southern kingdom of Judah, and especially those kings who did what was right in the sight of the Lord, which is good. 2 Chronicles will give special attention to the reign of those good kings. Those Solomon, of course, Asa, Jehoshaphat, okay, Joash, Hezekiah, and Josiah. Those kings, and only those. In chapters 1 through 9, it outlines Solomon's reign as he begins in Israel's golden age of peace, prosperity, and, of course, temple worship. Solomon's wealth, wisdom, and beautiful palace, and, of course, the exquisite temple are legendary, and people from all over the world got to come and see this place. From what the book reports, and it does so in great detail, artists have tried to depict what Solomon's temple may have looked like. Here is an artist's depiction of this temple. Okay, we're going to look closely at Solomon's temple from the inside out. I'm going to start on the far right-hand side of your screen and work to the left as we identify the parts and pieces of this temple. From right to left, number 12 is storage rooms. Okay, they're at the rear of this building, the temple, and on either side of the temple. The temple treasuries were stored here, as well as additional supplies like oil for the candles and bread and flour and different things, incense and so on. In that first room called the Holy of Holies, under two winged cherubims, that's point number 10 that you see there, was the Ark of the Covenant. A small little box underneath those huge cherubim. All right? The Ark of the Covenant that you and I got to know with Moses in the Exodus was just a real small box. It's only 3 1/4 feet long by 2 1/4 feet high and wide. So we're not talking a big box. All right? Inside that Ark of the Covenant were 3 things. The 2 tables of stone from the commandments, Aaron's rod that had become a snake, and, of course, the bowl of manna. On top of that Ark of the Covenant, between the wings of those cherubim, is a space called the mercy seat of God. It was there that the priest would put the blood of the lamb every yearly annual at Yom Kippur. In Solomon's temple, the cherubims are absolutely huge. They're winged creatures made of olive wood and overlaid with gold. They stand as guardians for God, wingtips to wingtips and touching the wall on either side. So these animals, these cherubims, okay, not only are huge, but their wingtips touch each other and the other side touch the side of the wall. So this whole room is filled with these huge creatures, right? Now why the differences between the Ark of the Covenant and that of Solomon's temple? Well, in the tabernacle, God commanded to Moses to attach the cherubims to the lid of the Ark of the Covenant, which he did, right? In Solomon's temple, he made 2 huge cherubims that stood over the Ark of the Covenant. We're not attached to it. Why the difference? Well, as best we can explain, because the Bible doesn't specifically do so, We think Solomon wanted to teach the people that God is much bigger than just their local Palestinian God, but that he really is God, really filling the whole world. A much larger picture of this great God. In the Holy of Holies, item number 9, was 12 cubits by 12 cubits. Okay? This room was a cube, equally three-sided room. 12 by 12 by 12. Why, you say? Well, that's what God is. A cube. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, is he not? So maybe already in Solomon's time, he was understanding this true nature of God. In between the two rooms of the temple, between the Holy of Holies and the holy place, is a curtain with doors made of olive wood. This separated the most holy place from the holy place. Okay? And in the holy place was this golden altar of incense, all right, representing the prayers of God. You can see the priest there as the smoke of the incense goes up. The priest would enter the holy place daily, okay? And inside the holy place, in addition to the altar of incense, were 12 lampstands, as well as 12 tables of showbread, okay? There were 6 on either side in Solomon's temple. The priest would enter the holy place daily, morning and evening, and would burn incense in the time of prayer. As the incense would rise, the teaching was, so do the prayers of God's people. It was here that Zechariah learned he would become a father, and then sire John the Baptist. Outside the temple, first of all, is the great sea or bronze basin. It was for priests to wash up. You can imagine how bloody and messy it would become with all the sacrificing. Well, this bronze basin was 15 feet across and held 10,000 gallons of water. In addition to that, 2 bronze pillars formed the columns for the porch of this temple. We think that porch was used for the priests to properly attire themselves to go in and function in the temple. In addition to that, you have the bronze huge altar for daily sacrifices. And then below the altar, you can see here the priest laying his hands on the animal, transferring his sins and that of the people to the animal. That concept goes throughout the Old Testament all over the place. Transferring one's sin to an innocent byproduct instead. And that's exactly what we do with our Jesus. The total size of Solomon's temple was roughly about 100 feet by 45 wide and 40 feet high. So not a huge structure by any means, all right? This is an old picture of my family farm, okay? A couple of buildings are no longer there, and some are being added. My grandma's house and homestead there in the far right-hand corner, upper corner, is no longer there. But the reason I show you this picture is to zero in on our barn, okay? That barn of ours is 102 feet long. It is 40 feet wide and 45 feet high. And why do I tell you all that? I'm not sure the original builders was thinking of the dimensions of the Temple of Solomon, but it almost fits right in our barn. Coincidence? Perhaps. I don't really know. The Temple Mound in Jesus' day, as drawn by the artist, shows that temple main structure, that white outcropping of rock around the walls and columns of the temple in Jesus' day. But today, that picture has changed ever so drastically. The temple is no more. The walls are pretty much there yet. But on that same piece of ground today is now the Muslims' Dome of the Rock. Well, 2 Chronicles chapters 10 through 36 tells of the reign of Judah's other kings. Israel's golden age of peace is really short-lived. And while with Solomon's death, the nation is divided and both kingdoms spiral downward. Judah forsakes the temple worship of Yahweh, that's meaning the true God, and is soon torn apart by warfare and unrest. While some good kings bring reform, it never lasts beyond one generation. 70% of chapters 10 through 36 of 2 Chronicles deals with the 8 good kings, leaving the rest of the book to cover the 12 evil rulers. Each king is evaluated on the basis of their relationship to the worship in the temple, to their spiritual strength and direction. And when the king serves the true God, as some of them do, Judah is blessed with political and economic prosperity. When the kings reject the true God, yeah, you know, things go very badly. We will study the 8 good kings next week as we continue our reading in 2 Chronicles. And then we're going to take 2 weeks off, okay, to observe Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. So you just move all of your dates of readings down 2 weeks, and that will give you a chance to catch up and so on. Questions or comments that you might have? Yeah, Kathy.
Yes, reading through, it told how many animals were slaughtered. Because, in my opinion, I can't believe how long they would have been at that temple doing all of these sacrifices. I mean, they have to be there for hours and days and.
The other thing you have to remember is they have a lot of priests to work with. Okay, we're not talking one pastor doing all the work there. We estimate that the tribe of Levi was nearly 20,000 men that were eligible to be priests. So, yes, it was a major undertaking, no question about it, but they had a lot of hands to do the work. And you really can see now why that water basin was so necessary, right? Can you imagine how messy they were? Wow. Exactly. Exactly. All right? Guys, Mark.
Did they eat the meat of the sacrifices? Or did they...
Some sacrifices, the fellowship sacrifices particularly, were shared not only amongst the people on making the offering, but then a portion would go to the priest for their pay as well. Okay? So a lot of the sacrifices were shared amongst the people offering the sacrifices and those priests that did the work.
So they didn't burn the entire animal?
No, they did not. No, they did not. We would say today it was a big barbecue. Okay? Big barbecue. Yeah. Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, regarding the temple.
Uh-huh.
Back when the temple was first introduced, I pictured it as maybe a cloth, and you go through the cloth, and then there's the holy place and the holy of holies and stuff. And now all of a sudden, you're showing it's a building of all kinds.
Well, you have to understand, it started out as a tabernacle, which was a movable tent. Okay? Then it was only cloth and leather and, whatever. So, because they had to break it down, move it to the next campsite, and so on. That has been going on for almost 300 years. All right? David gets the idea, we need a permanent structure for God's worship. Okay? And that's when this temple of stone and gold and all the, hard stuff, okay, gets built. And then that separation between the Holy of Holies and Holy Place had doors and a veil in Solomon's temple. By the time Herod brings the temple up to speed, in Jesus' day, there's only a veil that separates the two rooms, which then tears from top to bottom when Jesus does. Okay? So we're talking, going from a movable structure, which was primarily a tent, to that a permanent structure, kind of like a building. Okay? Yeah. Question?
Isn't the structure mainly made out of solid gold?
Well, there was lots of gold there, but gold is a very soft metal, so to kind of support a building, probably not stone and wood and iron was used as well. That was on the list that David had accumulated, remember? So they used the gold to certainly embellish the insides of this building that made it just absolutely spectacular. I mean, I would have loved to see that Solomon's temple. It was way overdone, I mean, 36 tons of gold? Come on already. Or 3,000 tons of gold plus? Wow. Amazing. Anything else? All right, we'll go on with our offering, and then